Okay, thank you so much again, Alex, to join our Web3 business podcast where we discuss everything on what actually matters to founders and entrepreneurs to go into this space. So, we interview obviously fellow founders, successful projects, anything with experience in the space, and that can inspire, hopefully, and help other fellow founders and entrepreneurs to make headway in Web3. So, having said that, Alex, it would be great to get to know you a little bit. What is your journey so far, professional journey? How did you end up in Web3? And what got you to kind of start the Wombat Exchange?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Happy to be here. Thanks, Token Minds. Yeah. So I'm Alex, founder of Wombat. I started in crypto around 2016. I was previously a quant trader at a prop shop, and I think the reason why I really got into crypto was that at that time I was kind of like just submitting random PRs, just contributing to random projects, and I thought it was cool. And then I guess, the allure of, decentralized finance was kind of cool. I mean, I would submit PRs during the weekends, not nights sometimes. And then obviously my day job would be a quant trader. And, to me that was pretty cool in the sense that I saw like both sides of the kind of the business and kind of like obviously they're two very diverse kind of mindsets, right? So, eventually the deeper the rabbit hole I got really um, tired of traditional finance because it didn't feel like I was adding any value to it. So, I quit after 4 or 5 years. I became a blockchain engineer at a few protocols. And then I jumped into Wombat Exchange. And after Wombat Exchange, how we got started was I had an Excel document and I just submitted to Binance Labs incubation. And then once they saw it, they just accepted. And that's kind of how we started. After the incubation, we had a lot of investors, a lot of great, supporters of the project. And that was in almost like 2 years ago now. Fast forward now, we're still building. Launching. We're on 7 chains. We've done a cumulative volume of 3 billion. We do around 10 to 12 million transaction volume a day. And yeah, it's exciting building. I think this space is mega exciting because you meet a lot of really cool, really smart, really genuine people, and then they just all want to work in collab. And I think the coolest thing is that, in traditional finance, you won't have an opportunity to build like, DeFi Legos like that build on top of each other, right? Like would be able to build like a DEX and other people would build projects on top of you. And that's something that's really hard to be able to happen and execute in traditional finance. So that's kind of how I started and kind of a bit of background on Wombat.
Okay, that's amazing. So um, you started Wombat as your first crypto project, or did you have any other projects?
I was part of a few, but Wombat is the first one I'm actually solely leading. So yeah, it's been an interesting ride.
And what's the kind of the involvement of Binance Labs? Are they doing the financing? Are they doing anything else? What is kind of the partnership there?
Obviously, like as a Binance Labs portfolio, there's tons of support. They gave us our first ticket. They connected us with their entire huge portfolio. Obviously, I believe last time I checked, their portfolio was worth like $9 billion, and obviously, so there's a lot of like great protocols there to work with and build with. So, and obviously Binance is still the biggest, entity in crypto, not named Tether, right? So, yeah, it's great. But obviously they have tons of projects, so you need to get their attention. It is, maintain a relationship.
Okay, so there's a lot of cross learnings from other, let's say, portfolio companies that they support.
That's correct.
Okay, interesting. And how long ago was that you applied for Binance Labs and you started one?
I think that was around like 2 years ago. Like during that time, obviously, it was like that almost like the tailwind of the previous bull market, and then obviously, Terra, UST, all that kind of stuff happened, right? But yeah, it's been 2 years, and I'm surprised. Time flies.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 years in the crypto space, like 2 decades in traditional finance.
Exactly, man.
I almost in traditional finance. But so okay, so those 2 years, and when you first started the exchange, what was kind of your angle? You know, your pitch to Binance Labs. What would make it different compared to other dexes?
So Wombat has our own unique algorithm. So in crypto, there's actually, like I tell a lot of in the other interviews, that there's actually not much unique algorithm designs in crypto. A lot of it is forks, and obviously that's kind of like a unfortunate thing. But Wombat, we pride ourselves having like a very unique algorithm and design, and I think that uniqueness is really what attracted Binance because I mean it's very easy to fork, but it's very hard to invent something new. And the thing about Wombat is, I believe you should develop something very simple. I think crypto right now it's still very nascent and it's very early for the majority of people. I mean, like it's a same argument over and over again where you tell a newbie that gets into crypto or a beginner that and they they have a hard time using like MetaMask. And if you have like a complicated protocol, DeFi protocol, it's almost like a no chance for them to get involved, right? So the the purpose of Wombat is to keep things simple and easy to use. Like I always say to people, like the math is difficult, but it shouldn't be for the end user, right? So I think the beauty in Wombat is the simplicity at the end.
So okay, so the UX UI obviously, but what makes it the algorithm part? What specifically is unique?
So, well, first of all, design is very different. So, a quick kind of summary of what other protocols use, like Uniswap V2 or Curve. Like when you deposit USDT into a pool, you get a kind of LP token of USDT, USDC. So that's kind of like it's counterintuitive to a traditional finance, right? Like you deposit, British pounds or deposit USD into a traditional bank, you don't get a mixture of other, currencies, right? Like it doesn't make sense. But in crypto, that's what happens. So the difference between Wombat is we successfully mimic how people would deposit in a traditional bank. Like when you deposit USDT, and you get a pure USDT LP that's not mixed with USDC. So how it works is it becomes much more cleaner in the sense that you can use it to do more born lending on all that kind of stuff. And because of this kind of like single token, single side design, you're able to have different design pool designs. And these pool designs, coupled with our algorithm, it's very gas efficient. And why is gas efficiency so important is because uh, there's a lot of arbitragers, a lot of bots, there's a lot of aggregators like 1inch, Jupiter, Kyber, Open Ocean, all those, Parasol, all those guys. So they choose their routes based on efficiency of the algorithm of the pool and all that kind of stuff. So Wombat has been successful is because our algorithm is capital efficient. So all these aggregators choose our routes as kind of a swap route. And when that happens, it's obviously beneficial for us because order flow flows through our decks.
Right, right. So in a way they are maybe not building on top of you, but they're integrating with you in that
That's
sense.
correct. That's correct.
And in the last 2 years, right? So 2 years ago, you kind of you had the idea, you started. How long did it take you to actually launch?
Um, I'll be honest. Like a lot of people come up to me saying like, "Oh, this, why can't you speed it up?" So the development of the Wombat algorithm actually took a year before that. So we've been actually designing and working on it for like last like 3 years ago already. So going through that, like working through the algorithm, you need to battle test it, you need to stress test it, you need to get it security audited, and make sure that all the loopholes and all the like abilities for people the attack vectors are plugged. So because DeFi is one of those things that people put their hard-earned cash in. They put their like maybe even life savings in, and if you're irresponsible with that, you're not doing enough security audits, double checking. Um, it's not fair for the end user. I mean, I'm not saying like it's completely perfect. I mean, even Curve had their Viper attack. You can't really avoid it because there's always someone there able to think outside the box and maybe figure out a way. But you have to try your best, and that's why like Wombat took so long to uh, come to fruition. And we have new algorithms coming up for different types of assets, and that's taking a while too because of all this testing that we're doing. So, yeah, I think we're one of the few. Obviously, I mentioned a few protocols that do innovation in terms of algorithms, and it just takes a long time, man. It's we're not just copying anything. So for us, it's any development or features. It does take a while.
Right, right. And you are also directly involved in development, right? You're basically one of the blockchain developers as well.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right. What has been, in your opinion, kind of the main challenges, or I'm sure there are many, but what kind of stood out in the last, let's say, year or so for this project?
Um, I think we deal with a lot of different like aspects. Obviously, getting Wombat integrated with all the aggregators, developing all these business partnerships at the same time dealing with users, partners, all that kind of stuff. It's stressful, but it's worth it. I think it's cool that people are using your protocol. Challenges, that kind of stuff is, I think, um, I think it's a kind of I would say it's inherently a crypto kind of like issue where people are very uh I guess it's kind of mercenary in the sense that like people like jumping into new protocols, jumping into new chains. But there are so many good protocols that have been building like great products that I get lost because everyone's like kind of farming airdrops. I'm not saying it's bad, but there's a lot of innovation in the space that it does go, I would say, kind of unnoticed, and it does kind of suck sometimes. But I always have the belief that if you build something that people use, that it's a revenue generating, it's a profitable business. It's in the long run you will win out at the end. I think my example I kind of mentioned is um, right now. So Wombat is obviously we're a multi-chain kind of swap that we work with so many different partners, and there are so many I guess projects that kind of like not well no, they don't give up, but they get discouraged once like they don't get any traction. Obviously, stable coins and tokens, it's competitive, right? And for a lot of these projects, they just end up kind of giving up a bit, and I think that's kind of a shame because they have innovation. And the majority of them that are unhappy with what it is because simply put, like maybe like a new team was just fork their code, launch some new chain, and gain more success in them. So it's just like weird cycle where you want to push people to develop more, but at the same time, there's a lot of copycats, and I think just balancing all of that is kind of annoying sometimes. But it's interesting. I think that's a real difference between building Web3 versus Web2, where everything's you're exposed, like everything you do you build is on chain, and people, I mean, they can copy. Whether people will use these copies is another story, but I mean, I think that's the main difference. I mean, for a lot of Web2 companies, you can keep secrets, but Web3, you're naked out there. So I think that's the challenge that people need to realize when you're building that kind of stuff.
Right. So saying some people that as well, they basically gave up because of this problem, right? Because of this.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But I mean, to be honest, I think like this like copying kind of thing, it happens in Web2 a lot too in tech companies. So, people, employees go out, start something new with like a similar design, and it happens. But I think that's the nature of technology makes it easier for people to be able to do that. But in my opinion, if you build a good product and a project, people will come and they'll notice. So I don't think that's an issue, but it can be for people coming in new. I think that's the thing.
Yeah, just in general, having that persistence for sure. You need it in Web3, in all the volatility and the forking everything what you just mentioned. So it's definitely a test of character, let's say, for anybody that wants to try to jump in. Indeed. Um, and what are your let's say for the future, for the next, let's say, year or so? What is on your roadmap? What kind of plans do you guys have?
Oh, tons. So we're actually deploying on more chains. Like the purpose of Wombat was always to be a cross-chain, multi-chain swap, and I always believe that it doesn't matter how many chains there are. A crypto user should always have the freedom of choice to go wherever they want. So obviously, Wombat as a cross-chain swap, it enables people to swap their assets to any chain. And to me, that's kind of the beauty of crypto. You like because you have a choice. So our goals is to deploy more chains. We have a new algorithm coming up to do more different types of assets, and we have other projects that we're kind of incubating as well. So that starts to build the ecosystem, and when that happens, it creates like a flywheel effect. For Wombat, I think, just expanding, being safe is the key. I think a lot of these big protocols, DeFi protocols, I read somewhere someone said it, I think it's like the best explanation where they have the best feature, which is not being hacked. I think that is probably the biggest and most important feature in DeFi and crypto, because obviously if you get hacked, people just don't trust your system, and it's very hard to recover. So, working on security is paramount and just continue building, expanding to more markets, basically.
Okay, so you're basically seeing kind of the adding of other chains, right? Kind of expanding your markets. But what is your vision on in general on the blockchain space, right? Because we're kind of in the infrastructure building phase, and you guys are building on top of that, on top of those blockchain. Do you have any personal, let's say, vision or thoughts on like what direction it's going, right? Like there's a couple of new layer ones also being kind of coming up. Let's say we had all the layer two since the last bull run. Where do you think it's going in terms of like distribution? Are we going to have one or two main layer ones, or like what are your thoughts on that?
That's a great question. I think at the end, there's only going to be a few chains left that people use heavily. I think that's just a reality. People don't have that much focus to be on so many different chains. And I think, people like community. I think what's going to win out is, projects and chains that build a strong community. Um, yeah, I think it goes back to that argument that if you think meme coins are here to stay, NFTs are here to stay or not, because they're really all about culture and community, right? And in my opinion, I think I heavily argue that meme coins are an important part of crypto culture, actually. And with that said, they're an important part because of culture, and I think that can be said of like chains and ecosystems because you really win out with culture and ecosystem. And in my opinion, not many chains and L1s or L2s are able to execute that properly. And so, yeah, I think that's for that reason alone. There's going to be, in the long run, there's going to be a few big major chains, maybe a lot of like smaller niche ones. But yeah, that's how I see it in the future.
That is a quite an interesting take indeed. That is a cultural, the community factor. Obviously, a lot of those are decentralized also for development. Some are not or less so. Um, but it's interesting your point about the survivability also based on the traction in the community. Definitely makes sense. And I love that you mentioned meme coins as well as part of that kind of cultural movement. Um, so what do you think? But your conclusion is still there's just going to be a few that survive, right? Just like just basically like Bitcoin, it has a cultural kind of uh, you know kind of movement around it, and that's one of the reasons that it's surviving. It's not just about the technology, that it's a little bit cheaper gas fees, or of course security is kind of a must, right? So how do you see the technology aspect of that, right? Because a lot of it is around the scalability, around the gas fees. Um, do you think that that is going to play a major role, or do you still believe that it's really also about the community and the movement behind it? Like, how do these two things kind of go hand in hand?
Um, that's a fantastic question, man. I actually had this discussion with a bunch of crypto friends, and we were discussing about the future of crypto. He's a very good friend of mine at head of a VC, and then I think culture is the it's paramount because obviously there's so many L2s out there that obviously I mean for a normal user, which one do you choose? Obviously, If you're on Coinbase, you can go to Base easily. You're on BNB, you can go to BNB chain easily. I mean, for those chains, it makes a lot of sense why there's a lot of people. But if you think about like the distribution kind of aspect, like for chains that don't have an exchange, how do you get your money on? Like for a lot of like people up and coming using, like obviously you can use like credit cards, but like for like whales and stuff, like how are you gonna get on? Obviously, you have able to mint like stable coins like USDT, USDC from directly. They'll give it into your wallet. But if you really think about in the long run, how are these chains, multiple chains, going to survive in terms of getting that user and reaching out to a wider audience? I mean, on Binance, you can obviously withdraw to Optimism, Arbitrum, all the main ones. But if you're a smaller chain, like that's pretty much you got to like I don't know withdraw to a main chain and then like transfer using Stargate or Wormhole or Axelar. And that whole process is very cumbersome, right? So I think long term, people do care about ease of use and simplicity, and I think that's one factor. Another factor is I think technology. I think as much as I love meme coins, I think the cultural aspect. At the end of the day, if you want sustainability, you need good tech to to kind of bind that all together. So first you bring the people. That's why I think GameFi is huge as well because you bring the people and then you have the technology to back your stuff up. And I think that's important. That's why I think Solana is so successful is because they have culture and they have like a great great infrastructure. It's fast. I think their DeFi experience is like second to none. And obviously you can withdraw to Solana from all major exchanges. So there's a lot of aspects that I think brings about to a success of a protocol, and I definitely think good tech at the end needs to be there for it to flourish long term. Obviously, short term, people don't really care because they want to be a part of the community, but long term, you really need cheap gas fees, all that kind of stuff to win out. I think.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned there's a very good case because obviously, technically speaking, I'm sure technically, I mean, they're quite solid, but they do have downtimes, and
Yeah.
uh, the community, what like I think that's your point, right? The community does appreciate what they're trying to do. They're very innovative. They're doing a lot of things, and they feel part of that kind of. They want to support this kind of movement, I guess. Um, but yeah, I think it may be an interesting moment to kind of open up a little bit for Q&A. Um, let me see. Give me a moment here because this is the first time for me hosting this. Um, okay, how do I actually open this up for questions, guys? Maybe someone can.
I have no clue actually.
Okay, we've got
I mean, I
three.
mean, if we don't, we can just send questions after, and I would we'd be glad to answer it after as well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's also. Please all follow Alex on Twitter and join, of course, the Wombat Telegram. You guys have Telegram. You guys have Discord
Yep,
as well.
yep. It's all on our website. Go to wombat.exchange. All the links are there. So, yeah, always happy to chat with the community. I think I'm known as one of the founders that is always on like replying messages on Discord and Telegram. So, feel free to always come and have a chat. Love talking about DeFi and crypto in general. And then, yeah.
Great, great. Yeah, for sure. Then let's begin with one final question from my side. What do you have any tips, recommendation, advice for fellow, let's say, people that want to start a Web3 project? What kind of comes to mind to possibly help them?
Yeah, I think right now is the best time to build. Obviously, the bull market is coming. It's undoubtedly it's going to pick up a lot of interest from everywhere in the world. And I think a lot of people don't realize that building is tough. It's not easy because there's so many things, so many reasons for success. Meaning that it's just because you have the best code doesn't mean you'll win. Just because you have the best marketing doesn't mean you'll win. It's like really a mixture of everything. Like as much as I don't like it. Like Web3 is still a very people business. People like working with people they like. And I think, if people like you, I mean, they would love to work with you. And obviously, there's other concerns like security ish and all that kind of stuff. But, I think I think it's great to build. It's very rewarding. And I think, the future is very good for crypto. So, I encourage a lot more people to build in Web3. It's not easy, but I think, you'll find great satisfaction in it.
Yeah, that's great advice. People, please do join all the conference, connect with people. There's definitely a very open culture around crypto and people that want to build and support you. So that's great advice. Thank you so much, Alex, and thank you for your time. Really highly appreciate it. And hopefully we will do this another time potentially. And in the meantime, thank you guys for listening and see you guys next time.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
thank you. Take care.